Part 1. The Age of Crisis, Freedom in Chains. The era we live in is full of paradoxes. We have more wealth than ever before, yet a sense of scarcity dominates our minds. We have more ways to connect, yet we feel lonelier than ever. We speak of freedom, yet we are shackled by invisible burdens, finances, responsibilities, social pressures, and even our own fears. 1. The cost of modernity. John, 38, lives in New York. He has a stable job with a 6-figure salary, an apartment in the city center, and a brand new car. On the surface, John possesses everything an adult could wish for. Yet every morning, he wakes up with an unnameable emptiness. Bills keep piling up, mortgage payments weigh heavily on his shoulders, and the pressure at work continues to mount. Each day, John spends over 10 hours at the office, returns home exhausted, and retreats into the virtual world of social media. He no longer has time for the things that truly matter: family, friends, and himself. John is not an isolated case. A study by Gallup reveals that over 60% of American adults feel stressed and burned out due to work, and nearly half admit they are not genuinely satisfied with their lives. The cause is not a lack of money or status. It is a lack of control, the inability to truly take charge of one's own life. 2. A lesson from history. Marcus Aurelius and the art of mastering the mind. The modern world is not the only time in history when people have felt trapped in their own lives. Over 2,000 years ago, Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor, faced overwhelming pressures. He ruled a vast empire, battled plagues, wars, and betrayals. Yet instead of being crushed by these challenges, he chose to control the one thing he could: his own mind. In Meditations, Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Marcus refused to let power and responsibility imprison his spirit. He practiced Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches happiness does not come from external circumstances, but from how we respond to them. 3. A mindset for mastering life. The first step to breaking free. Can John change his reality? The answer is yes, but not by making more money or switching jobs. It begins with mastering his mindset, learning to see the world differently. Understand that you cannot control everything, but you can control your reactions. When the economy shifts, you can choose to worry or to adapt. When work becomes stressful, you can complain or improve your time management skills. Distinguish between what is essential and what is temporary. Money, fame, and status can all be lost, but your core values, your character, knowledge, and how you treat others are what truly endure. Develop the ability to accept reality without losing yourself. Life will never be perfect, but you can learn to find peace even in difficult circumstances. John has not yet freed himself from the chains of his time, but he has taken the first step, changing his mindset. And this is the foundation upon which he will build a new life. Part 2. Building a foundation, the power of mindset in action. John had realized that to change his life, he couldn't simply sit back and wait for circumstances to shift. Mindset was the beginning, but action was the key to unlocking a meaningful life. Yet how does one turn awareness into reality? How does a middle-aged man, surrounded by financial pressures, work obligations, and societal expectations, rebuild his life? The answer lies in constructing a solid foundation, one where personal strength is not only cultivated in thought, but forged through concrete action. Small actions, big impact, redefining success. Most people in modern society are trapped in a vicious cycle. They believe that success only comes when they achieve major milestones, earning more money, advancing in their careers, or gaining social recognition. This mindset keeps them perpetually dissatisfied with the present. However, history has shown that true success is not in grand outcomes, but in the consistent execution of small actions. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, did not become a great statesman overnight. He built himself through small daily habits, reading every day, learning something new, and cultivating personal ethics. John began with small changes. Mornings were no longer a race to the office, but a quiet time for reflection and planning. He spent 10 minutes each morning writing down 3 things he was grateful for. Instead of mindlessly scrolling through social media, he dedicated an hour each evening to reading about personal finance, psychology, and philosophy. Rather than letting work consume his life, he scheduled activities that made him feel truly alive, meeting friends, taking walks, and spending time with family. These changes seemed minor, but after a few weeks, John began to notice a difference. He no longer felt swept away by the tide of society, but was shaping his own life, step by step. DAF 2. Financial management. True freedom begins with money mastery. One of the biggest reasons John felt trapped was his dependence on his paycheck. He earned a high salary, yet most of it was swallowed up by expenses, debt, and taxes. John realized that financial freedom didn't come from making more money, but from controlling how money was used. He studied the habits of figures like Warren Buffett, one of the world's wealthiest men, who maintained a simple lifestyle and focused on long-term investments. John implemented 3 key financial changes. Budgeting. He tracked every expense and eliminated unnecessary spending. Building an emergency fund. He set aside 20% of his income to create a financial cushion, ensuring he wouldn't be caught off guard by unexpected events. Investing in the future. Instead of merely saving, he learned about investing, stocks, real estate, and passive income sources. After a few months, John no longer felt financially suffocated. No matter what happened, he knew he had control over his life. 3. Mental and physical health. Laying the foundation for a resilient life. Nothing is more important than health, yet most people only realize this when they lose it. John had been caught in a cycle of stress, insomnia, and unhealthy eating. He had no time for exercise, and his mind was constantly consumed by work. But transformation couldn't stop at finances or daily habits. He needed to care for his body and mind. John adopted strategies inspired by great thinkers from history. Like Marcus Aurelius, he practiced daily meditation, focusing on controlling his thoughts and emotions. Like Theodore Roosevelt, he strengthened his body through daily exercise, running, weightlifting, and spending time in nature. Like Winston Churchill, he prioritized sleep, rejecting the meaningless culture of late-night overwork. Gradually, he felt stronger, not just physically, but mentally. The problems that once made him anxious now seemed insignificant because he had the energy to face them. Now 4, reconnecting with people, building community and purpose. One of the greatest sources of John's past loneliness was the lack of real human connection. He had hundreds of friends on Facebook, yet none of them truly understood him. He realized that humans are not meant to live in isolation. We thrive when we are part of a strong community. History has shown that the most prosperous civilizations were those centered around meaningful human relationships, from ancient Greece to the Renaissance. John decided to join clubs and community groups where he could meet like-minded individuals, spend more quality time with family and friends, not just through messages, but through real conversations, learn to give, not just financially, but through time and genuine care for others. And then, something remarkable happened. He no longer felt lost. True connections made him feel like he was part of something greater than himself. John had come a long way. He started with awareness that his life would not change unless he changed. But it was action that truly made a difference. Now, he was no longer a man living in fear and anxiety. He was building a life of freedom, financially, mentally, physically, and socially. Task Part 3, living with purpose, building a sustainable and meaningful life. John had already made significant changes in his life, from mastering his mindset, improving his finances, and taking care of his health, to cultivating meaningful relationships. But he knew that transformation was not a one-time event. It was a lifelong process. Without consistent maintenance and adjustments, everything could quickly revert to the starting point. The biggest question for John was no longer, how do I escape the pressures of life? But rather, how do I create a life truly worth living? Maintaining good habits, avoiding the temptation to fall back. Change is one thing, but sustaining it is the real challenge. John realized that modern society constantly pulls people back into an undisciplined lifestyle, overworking, unnecessary consumption, and endless distractions. To protect what he had built, he applied the principle of systems over willpower, automating his finances. He continued allocating 20% of his income to savings and investments, preventing impulsive spending. Scheduling personal priorities. He set aside fixed times each week for reading, exercising, and spending time with loved ones, ensuring that important activities weren't overshadowed by work. Keeping a minimalist environment, instead of buying unnecessary things, he focused on quality over quantity, just as Steve Jobs simplified his wardrobe to reduce decision fatigue. By following these principles, John no longer had to struggle daily to stay disciplined. His habits became a natural part of his life. Sunk into career, no longer working just for money, but for fulfillment. John had once worked solely for financial survival, but now with a solid financial foundation, he could approach work from a different perspective. How can my work bring real value? He didn't quit his job overnight to chase a vague passion, as many cliché self-help books suggest. Instead, he took a practical approach. Improving his current job situation, he negotiated for more flexibility, focused on projects he genuinely enjoyed, and minimized unnecessary tasks. Exploring opportunities beyond his main job, he started a blog to share his experiences, which not only generated a small income but also gave him real satisfaction. Letting go of job-related fears. In the past, he constantly worried about losing his job or not advancing fast enough. But now, with financial stability, he knew he could always find another job if necessary. Instead of being controlled by work, John was now learning to control his career on his own terms. Add 3, relationships. Investing in the right people. John used to be so busy that he neglected his friends and family, but now he understood that true success wasn't about money or status, it was about genuine human connections. He focused on 3 key principles: quality over quantity. Instead of maintaining hundreds of shallow acquaintances, he invested in a few truly meaningful relationships with family, close friends, and inspiring individuals. Making time for important people, he scheduled family dinners, short trips with friends, and random check-in calls with loved ones, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Letting go of toxic relationships, he no longer kept in touch with people who drained his energy or only took advantage of him. This freed up time for those who genuinely mattered. Gradually, John's life shifted from isolation to being surrounded by authentic and meaningful connections. Leisure and enjoying life, not waiting for retirement to start living. John once believed that real life would only begin after achieving something grand, but now he realized that life is happening right now, not someday in the future. He no longer spent entire weekends mindlessly watching TV or scrolling through social media. Instead, he tried new experiences, learning to play the guitar, taking an art class, experimenting with cooking unfamiliar dishes, spent more time in nature, hiking, taking spontaneous trips, and appreciating nearby places rather than waiting for big vacations. Let go of guilt when relaxing. He understood that leisure wasn't laziness, it was an essential part of a balanced life. John was no longer waiting for an elusive perfect moment to start enjoying his existence. 5. Accepting that life is imperfect, but choosing how to respond. Despite all his growth, John knew that life would always present challenges. There would still be days of exhaustion, career setbacks, and unforeseen financial difficulties. But the difference now was that he no longer allowed these setbacks to define him. He accepted that while he couldn't control everything, he could always control his response. Instead of worrying, he took action. Instead of complaining, he adapted. Instead of avoiding problems, he faced them with calmness and confidence. This shift in mindset gave him the ultimate freedom, the ability to navigate life with resilience and purpose. Conclusion: a practical, sustainable, and meaningful life. John did not become a billionaire, a great leader, or a world-changing figure, but he achieved something far more important. He made his own life worth living. He was no longer a man trapped by work, money, and societal pressures. He no longer lived according to the expectations of others. Instead, he found freedom in the most practical and sustainable way, mastering his finances so he was no longer controlled by money or the fear of financial instability. Doing meaningful work, not just to earn a paycheck, but to create real value for himself and others. Building genuine relationships, rather than being surrounded by shallow connections or energy-draining interactions. Enjoying life every single day, finding joy in the present rather than waiting for some perfect distant moment. John didn't change the world, but he changed himself. And that was the most important transformation of all. His story is not a fairy tale, nor is it an extraordinary journey. It is a real, practical process, one that anyone can follow if they are willing to change. And if John could do it, so can you.